Well, good afternoon, everyone. Here we are with another episode of the Three Amigos, Ron, Ray, and Ed. And Ed today is going to be taking the lead, discussing how to optimize your business and the 7-step process he's developed to be able to do that. So without further ado here, Ed, take it over.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Today, I want to really focus heavily on one slide that I put on the screen just now. And I want to focus on talking to business owners, what their options are in selling their business or transitioning out of their business. And they all love their business and they want to stay in their business forever. But as we all know, that's impossible. Eventually, the business will transition. And you have 3 choices. Number one, and I'm really shocked to find out how many people are electing to go this route, and that is to get out right now and liquidate the business. And in that situation, you're out, you can do whatever you want, but your employees, your customers, your vendors are all hurt by that. And your return on what you're going to get on your assets is like 10 to 15%. So it's not a very attractive option, but I'm shocked by the number of business owners that elect to go that route. And it keeps going on over and over again. And I say, well, why don't you try to sell your business? And they just don't want to go through the aggravation. So that's interesting.
Do you think that's so much of a choice, or do you think that's a matter of neglecting so long that they have no options?
I think it's a choice. I really do. I don't think they want the hassle. They haven't thought of it because they want to move on to their next thing and whatever that is, and they have to get rid of the business. They can't keep it on. So,
yeah, I would kind of mirror that. I think that they don't think ahead about their own mental health very far or very well, and they don't anticipate that they don't have the energy that they used to have in a variety of things, and they've put it off so long that it's too late to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that probably the people who elect to do that are probably the same ones who have pretty much ignored planning for years and years. And so they never plan, and they go down a road that doesn't return them what they really should get for the business as a result.
You know, it kind of reminds me of that old bromide about plan. We don't need no stinking plans.
yeah, well, a lot of people feel that way. And one other thing related to these business owners, they don't want to listen to anybody from the outside and aren't able to take direction or recommendations. So they're pretty much stuck in their own way of thinking. So that's one group of people. Another group of people, they want to sell now, but they don't realize that now is probably 9 to 12 months away. And because it takes a lot of time for due diligence, trying to market your business. As Ron and I were talking earlier with a client, you are trying to sell an asset where there's no market for it. So you have to create a market for your business. And that takes time. So it's not an easy thing to do. Like if you own stock, you can call up your broker and sell the stock immediately and get your money. Can't do that with a business. And the other thing is, in addition to having no market, these businesses are smaller, less sophisticated, and have much higher risks than something you would invest in the stock market. A lot of people think the stock market's high risk. If you believe that, a small business is extremely high risk. And when you look at the stock market, I think over its longevity, at the return somewhere between 11 and 12% a year on average, you would want to double that amount if you were going to be buying a small business. You would expect that business to show a return of, say, around 25%. So when you're discounting your cash flows to today, that's going to reduce the valuation of your business.
You know, if I can add something here, Ed, and Ron, I'd like your input on this. You know, the truth is, we've talked about this, and most small businesses, the owners, you know, got into it because, first of all, they have a strong independent streak, and they're more interested in being their own boss than reporting to somebody else. So that's a double-edged sword. You know, the bottom line is that they're not often prepared. They're usually pretty good technicians. And that's what got them into their new business, but they really don't understand any of the things we can bring to bear or Ron can bring to bear. They don't know marketing, typically. They don't know finance. And so, you know, that creates further problems. Is that consistent with you guys?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Is that they so many times they start off in something that they understand. They've been successful because they've properly identified a product or a solution of some sort in a niche market, and they get in there, get started, do a good job. They get market acceptability, therefore they make it past the first 5 years. But as they go forward, after that point, they don't necessarily turn into business people. Yeah. And many of them, I'm sorry to say, believe that they're good business people because they've been successful. But that's not necessarily the same thing. If you get to a certain size, you can afford to hire good people, accountants and tax people and lawyers, and they can kind of keep you out of hot water and keep you in the straight and narrow on certain issues. But that does not turn somebody into a good business person who's thinking about value in really someone who's thinking about maximizing the value of the limited capital that they have. They tend to be business people first and craftspeople second.
Yeah, so continuing on, if you want to sell your business now, it still takes roughly a year.
Yeah.
The third option would be to bring in some advisors that know what they're doing. And you got to be careful here because not all advisors are created equally. There's a lot of, we talked about EOS in the past as a business model for building value. But a lot of times their advisors don't have any experience in running a business. So they become facilitators rather than people that really push for incremental value. The only way I see you can push for incremental value is that you have to have experience on how to do it, because you have to challenge people to think outside the norm, outside their business experience, to do it differently. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard sell unless you have the experience to back it up. So if you hire an advisor, and the advisor should get paid based upon the value, a percentage of the value that he creates or she creates, it's going to be a 3 to 5 year process. But you could triple the value of your company in that period of time. And I use that as a minimum. And that's really the goal. So how do you define value? And most people define value very simply by saying it's EBITDA times a multiple for that industry equals the value of the company. So there's a thing called exponential value creation. And when you're doing that, you're looking at you're trying to improve the EBITDA and the multiple, so you get a exponential result from that improvement. And a lot of times people just think about improving EBITDA, but that's only part of it. The multiple can even be more impactful. But if you do both, the results are tremendous. So I think it's a base point, and Ray and I have been on a client where we did much better than this. We double EBITDA as our goal. We try to improve the multiple by 50%. And if we do that, we can triple the valuation. And likewise, if we tripled EBITDA and we doubled the sales multiple, then we're looking at a valuation that's 6 times what it's worth now. To me, it's worth the exercise to go down that road.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's going to sell faster. People want something that's effectively running. They don't want to have to go in and fix it. They really would like to buy something that's working really well. And then they can add their 2 cents onto it. But so in my opinion, the better it's running, the easier it is to sell.
And I think one of the things we've also identified, because of these the independent nature of these small business owners, you know, they have a tendency to keep meddling in everything, and basically nobody wants to buy a business if the owner is a component of that. You know, the real goal, if I understood what you're saying correctly, Ed, at some point the business increases in value the moment the owner can step away from it.
Very good. Yeah.
I think the point that you make is really a major point, Ed. When you're talking about exponential value creation, it's and another way maybe to look at it is like a lever. What you really have is, instead of pushing or lifting up a box, you're able to put that box on like a teeter-totter and go to the other end and lift it up a lot higher because of the lever. And so these multiples are the levers that lift your profit, your EBITDA, that lift that up. It's hard to get EBITDA profit up. It's a lot of work to get it up. But if you can get the valuation to double, now you've really done something, because you've doubled your EBITDA in terms of the mathematics of what people will pay for the business. So it's this incredible lever that is something that very few business people I've worked with over the last 35 years understand. And that's just really, you know, how certain aspects of the business can really affect the price or the value of the business. And that's, I think, what this discussion is about, is how do you get that as the end result? Now, it's not easy to do. It takes a lot of work. But you're right. If you can get a multiple of, say, 3 or 6 or even more times, not percent, but times what you would normally sell it for, you earned a business that might pay you 1 year's salary into something that is a small fortune now.
Yeah, yeah. You know, one of the things Ed and I were talking about earlier, Ron, that's consistent with this is that, you know, I've seen very few small businessmen that weren't hard workers. But my experience has been it's not only hard work, but it's got to be the right work. And I think what you're saying and what Ed's saying here, you know, if you don't have the right priorities, you know, ultimately, you know, you can't really grow the business. You can't take advantage of these opportunities that we're talking about.
Well, and I would say that especially for startups, being hard workers is really key, and you know, very, very important part of success. A very important part of our culture. And we could argue whether or not the hard work or that work ethic is what it used to be. But there somewhere there needs to be a transformation when the owner's goal is not to work hard at what, say, he may used to do in order to get the product out the door, but that he begin to work hard at the management strategies and the mechanisms that Ed is talking about here in order to be able to increase this multiple. It's
Right.
hard work also.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You need to work hard at it.
Right.
You don't have to go out to the shop floor and do whatever work it is that you might have done in order to get the business started. You don't have to be in the shipping room anymore. You used to do it all. But now what you have to do is let everybody else do it literally all, with the exception of maybe looking at the financial decisions and making strategic changes. That's what the owner should be doing, is making strategic changes as he nears the time when he's going to sell his business.
Yep.
Yeah, so one of the challenges, we're listening to this presentation and we're a business owner. First question is, well, who do I talk to? And who do they normally talk to? They talk to their CPAs. Do CPAs have experience in this area? No, they have valuable skills, and most of it relates to the past and taxes, which is important. However, for optimizing your business, it isn't going to get you there. They're not going to be able to help you. The other person you may go to is your attorney. Well, they're not going to have any clue what we're talking about here.
Right.
They'll be able to write the language of the deal that you want to do, but they're not, or they might be able to come up with ways for you to protect your business, but they're not going to come up with ways to optimize your business. So I think that is a challenge, guys. And if you go to guys that just are facilitators, they're not going to get it done either because they don't have the experience. So you have to have someone who's got the experience that can lead you through the process. And hopefully they have led others through the similar process and have generated great results. So that's one of the challenges that a business owner has.
I might just throw in, just as a comparison, that big businesses do this all the time. You've got controllers and financial advisors, as well as strong financial people in these big companies that are doing nothing but looking at company valuations. And when they're evaluating the financials, they're also looking at it from a standpoint of what are the kinds of things that we can do to increase the return on our assets. And then the question would be, well, why would you do that? And the answer is because the stock price goes up.
Yeah.
Profit drives stock, but also long-term stability and many of these other issues also drives the stock price. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to increase the multiples. You look at the stocks today, if you happen to have an account, go take a look at the price earnings ratios. People are paying from 20 to 30 times the earnings of a company in order to own a little teeny piece of a major company.
Yeah.
20 or 30 times. Now, we're talking about maybe you could get 3, maybe you could get 5 times your earnings, maybe a little bit more. But that's because of the risk and because of the relative unsophistication of small business people. So there are folks out there who know these numbers and know how to do it. It's just that most of them work for very large corporations.
Well, that's very true. And that's where I got my experience. But when you want, and investment bankers are really smart people and they know how to value your company. But what we're trying to do at this point in time for a business owner of a small family business is help them optimize the results of their business.
Yeah.
And then you give it to an investment banker and they're going to say, wow, this thing's got a lot of value and we're going to be able to sell it really quick, and they'll create the market to sell it. But the hard work, and very few people have the ability to do this, is to optimize the business by building value and reducing risk. And if you do both of those things, you're going to increase the valuation of your company. So we've been talking about, from our conversations, the past 7 steps for optimizing your business. And it starts off by knowing what your business is valued at. Because once you know how it's valued and you understand the cash flow implications and the risk factors and things of that nature, then you have enough knowledge where you can build value because you understand how value is created. The other thing that Ray and I have been looking at is doing assessments with the owner and his management team. And there's 2 assessments we like to think about, and we spent some time working on them. Is number 1 is where's the owner at in selling the business? Is the business ready to be sold, or we got a lot of work to do? So that's one assessment. And the second assessment is tied into building value, and that is what levers can you pull, as Ron would say, to increase the value of this business? So I like that lever analogy, is very true. So that's where we start in the process, and that's gathering information. It's listening to the thoughts of the owner rather than telling him what to do. You're listening to where he's at in the process, and you're trying to help educate them and the team as to what's got to happen, how they got to work together, what kind of culture they need, et cetera, to build value in their corporation, in their company. So that's the first step. And by the way, you can do some of these steps at the same time. Some of them you have to do them in order. But I think that one is where you start, because I think that's where you build a relationship with the owner. And trust me, if you're going to do this and do it well, you have to have a great relationship with the owner.
Yeah.
He's got to trust, he or she's got to trust you, and they have to be on the same page. And as I tell everybody in every presentation I give, I'm only interested in helping the owners that want to be helped.
Yeah.
So if you're an owner that knows everything about everything, you're probably not going to be interested in hiring us. But if you're open and you want to build a value business, this is a great opportunity. And it definitely is a relationship that you build upon, listening to both sides of the process. The second step, I can't tell you how important it is. It is extremely important because the strategic planning process identifies where you're going to go. What's your roadmap? It starts with a SWOT analysis. A lot of people know what that means, but how many have really done one in a very successful manner? It's knowing your value drivers. It's knowing your value strategies. And also it's your mission and your value, core values of your company, which are extremely important. It sets the stage for everything. It sets the evaluation of if you're making progress towards your strategic plan. And of course you want to have numbers, and very few people put any numbers to their strategic plan.
Yeah.
And without numbers, you can't measure results. The third step is probably is really, really important to the owner because it reduces risk. And as we said, the value of a company is based upon the risk. The riskier the company is, the less value it has to an outsider. And also, when you talk about risk, it's not only the risk of the company, but owners usually have all their money in one asset, and that's their business. So if there's an opportunity to reduce their equity in the business by adding some minority partners or anything to reduce their equity into that business so they can move some of that investment into other investments, it makes a lot of sense. And I put succession planning in here because that's one way of reducing risk. if something happens to the owner and he's got a great team, that business will continue to prosper. Whereas if he doesn't have a great team, without his daily involvement, the business might not survive.
That's yeah, that is very important, and very few of the businesses I've worked with have good succession plans.
The fourth step is value strategies. And we're going to talk about the valuation wheel here in a few minutes. But basically what we're talking about here is how can you add value? And it starts with the market, and it starts with the customers, which are extremely important. And it also looks at post investments in the company, as well as partnerships and M&A opportunities. They all got to be built in to this strategic plan so that you're growing the greatest value possible. And I guess the only other thing I would add to value strategies, you can't do everything at once. You got to pick your top 5, and you got to focus on them, and you got to measure them on a quarterly basis. And then you can change them out as you go through each year as you make progress, but people aren't able to deal with more than 5 or 6 strategies at a time and run the business.
Yeah, my experience in looking at Fortune 500 companies, I don't know what your experience is, Ron, but it's less than 3 to 5, and if the big boys can only manage 3 to 5, anybody who's trying to manage more is probably fooling themselves.
Yeah, well, it does change quite a bit depending on the business. Yeah, but you're right. You're right. There has to be some reasonable number there.
The fifth step is culture, and we've talked about how important culture is many times in our programs. And it's that relentless execution of your plan and measuring it. Are you making progress? Are you holding people accountable? Are your goals and objectives in alignment? And the key here is not to incent management for basically doing business as usual. The key here is to incent them for creating value. And if you keep doing this over and over and over again, you will change your culture to a performance culture rather than just showing up for work.
Yeah.
The sixth step is goodwill. And people will ask, well, what is goodwill? Where do you find goodwill? Well, it's not on your balance sheet. And you'll have all your assets and liabilities on your balance sheet, but you won't have the true goodwill of your company, because accounting doesn't account for fair value accounting. It's historical accounting. So the value associated with the market that you're in, your customers, how well are you getting along with your customers? How much value do they put into your company? What kind of processes and automation do you use to make sure the trains are on time? The people that you have working for your company that you groomed over the years, they have certain skills, growth, and your margins, that's really drives the goodwill of your company. And when we talk about creating value, it's not adding more fixed assets, it's adding goodwill. And the last step, the seventh step, and I bet you never thought we'd get there.
No, this is good.
Exit strategies, exit options. And there's 8 of them. And you got to decide which one's best for the owner. And that takes quite a bit of analysis. And it really takes into consideration who that owner wants to sell to, when he wants to sell, and at what price.
Yeah.
And answering those questions will pretty much dictate which option is best for you.
What I like what you've done here, I think is important, is that, with the stair step, all these things have to be done kind of concurrently. So, basically, this is as much a wheel as it is the step. But the bottom line is that as you implement and execute these, your exit options and your price go up dramatically. And I think, as we look at this, this is what we've been trying to share with, potential viewers over the past 8 months is a plan and techniques and processes that can help them get to that 3 to 5 times multiple.
Yes. I'd like to just spend the last couple of minutes here talking about our value drivers, the value wheel that we've talked about in previous sessions, and the different skill sets that are required to optimize these different value drivers are really important. When we talk collectively with our group, the first two are kind of always with Ron.
Mm.
What are the market dynamics? What are the opportunities in the market? What are our competitive advantages? How sticky are our customers? Number two, extremely important. If your customers are going to leave the company, your company's not worth a lot. And unfortunately, when people, I had a conversation with someone today and she was saying how many customers she's losing, and she doesn't know why, and she doesn't know what to do about it. Well, you really have to have one heck of a relationship with your customers. You got to be talking to them, and you got to be finding out what of value you're providing to them, and that's what you need to enhance your position in delivering to them.
Yeah.
And yeah, Ron's an expert. So I'm only scratching the surface in this summary here. But you really have to have a full-time expert on marketing to really help drive those results. And obviously, it all comes down to growing revenue, but growing revenue and margin. Because if you're growing in revenue and you're not growing margin, you're not really making improvements to your bottom line. You actually might make your bottom line worse.
Yeah.
So that's important. And then the fourth driver we always kind of call Ray. That's to increase the efficiency, productivity, and quality of the operation. And a lot of times people focus on that one and they don't focus on the others because I guess we're more educated in that area. But it's really important to make sure that the frontline workers are in alignment with the owners of the company. And a lot of times that's not the case. And then
I don't know about the experience that maybe either you two had, but one of the things that I find is something of a problem in small business is that there's this hubris or arrogance about, well, what can the frontline workers do for me? I mean, these guys are not capable of doing anything. And my personal experience is that, they're the people who can really execute and make things happen in really positive ways. But I don't know how you guys have seen this.
I recently rewatched a video of the founding of Amazon by Jeff Bezos, and this was probably 2006 or 7. So Amazon's grown a whole lot bigger since then, but he was already incredibly successful, 50 or 60 times more successful than his plan showed for. And he was talking about their first job was to build customers and to create relationships with customers, and not in the sense that we might think of marketing, but in the sense of everything revolves around the customer, and it's really easy to say. But if you look at it and begin to understand what they've accomplished, like them or hate them,
Yeah.
They have really figured out how to anticipate the desires of the customer. And they have all kinds of algorithms that are working in the background constantly whenever you're on the website, doing nothing but that. They're trying
Right.
to anticipate the best they can. And he made the interesting comment that, yes, it's good to ask customers what they think, and they love feedback. They always utilize feedback from customers. But he also mentioned as to how difficult it is for customers to know what it is that they want. They actually don't understand it, and therefore they use a wide array of customer behaviors in order to anticipate what the customer does. So my tie-in here to your comment, Ray, is that his quote, frontline people are mostly programmers. These are the people that are trying to build the interface with, excuse me, trying to build the interface on the internet so that customers find it more useful, etc.
Right.
But if you don't carefully share what you're trying to do with customers, the frontline people won't have any idea what to look for and how to
Yes.
evaluate that.
Amen. Yeah.
And so he was, I think, very intelligent in the way he approached the development of their business by focusing on building technology that was always customer centric.
Right.
And I don't think there's any question about the success that he has had, taking over the world. It's because he focuses on the customers and he uses empirical kinds of markers and indicators
Right.
to determine what customers want. So I want to clarify, maybe it's a slight disagreement. Listening to what frontline workers think about customers is not the answer. That is not how Amazon built their business. They built it based on empirical evidence of behaviors that customers actually exhibited.
Well, what I like about Ron's comments there, they're related to the first three bullet points.
Yeah.
Always the customer, and having that background is extremely important, because if you're a bean counter, you're not going to have that perspective. You're going to have a white collar perspective that's different than a blue collar perspective. And
well, yeah, that's true. And I want to emphasize the point that part of the customer experience is how rapidly they can get their product.
absolutely.
It also includes things like, did you put two things in one box that were divergent products, not necessarily from the same warehouse? And so the bean counters are told, you will solve this problem. And it's the bean counters, as you put it, don't necessarily look for the problems. They measure the problems.
Right.
And the people are following Jeff Bezos's heavy recommendation, I suppose, that they get this accomplished.
Right.
They will get it accomplished, and they will measure it, and they will find better ways to ship things quickly, to check on quality, to check on their vendors, and all of the myriad of things that goes into the entire customer experience, which truly is really the entire company. So the message is everybody should be on the customer's side, regardless of whether they're a bean counter or a marketer or whatever.
Amen.
Right.
The next three drivers are often forgotten or not used in
Yeah.
many businesses. First of all, investing in high ROI projects. A lot of times people are willing to keep repairing junk to keep it going rather than investing in technology with greater efficiencies. Or they love one thing, they get in love with one thing and they want to buy that. And that might have an ROI of 10%, and they're missing out on opportunities that could be 100% return. So it's really good to do the exercise and determine what type of ROI these investments are. And obviously, you want to invest in high return projects. The other item is optimize the balance sheet and cash flow. And the problem there is that most people don't know how to read a balance sheet. And that's an educational process. A balance sheet is extremely important in identifying how long it takes from when you make investments in providing a service or a product to the time you get paid. And that's working capital. And working capital is very expensive. You have to pay for that. So if you can keep your working capital down, you can add value to your company. That's a very simplistic aspect of the balance sheet. The balance sheet tells you how much debt you have compared to how much equity. And if you have a lot of debt, then you have a lot of risk. So, and if you don't have debt, you're missing out on opportunities to convert 5% money into 75% money. So it's a balancing act. The seventh driver is one that most people just don't have a clue of. They're not looking outside their company. They're so focused on what's going on in their company, they don't see opportunities or what other companies that are related to them that are up for sale, that if they merged into their company, they would be able to significantly add value to their company. And partnerships, how I could partner with this company on distributing my product where we both would save money. That's a real opportunity. No investment required, just working together in some type of a partnership. And then finally, having some type of reevaluation time at the end of every quarter, going through your numbers, your key metrics of what's going on in your market. Are you doing what you want to do? And key metrics are extremely important, and it's got to be part of the culture. You got to get this information, you got to review it daily or weekly, and you got to make sure you're making progress. So I guess that's kind of a summary of the 8 drivers that we use.
And I think if I understood this correctly, Ed, this all connects in with what you've given us previously. If we follow these, they'll take us up the road to increasing business value.
Exactly. And to be fair about it, a business owner is going to need help looking outside the box, looking at different ways of doing things. It's not going to be part of what they do day in and day out.
Right.
And let me remind everyone that we've done extensive pieces on these drivers. And so they're there on this channel, and you can continue to listen to those and get the details of how you accomplish each one of those.
Yeah, good reminder again. And we're going to remind you as we wrap this up here that this is an opportunity for you to look at this and all of the preceding shows that you may find valuable as you drive back and forth to work or wherever. Our goal here has been to help you as a small business owner more effectively get to the point where Ed's talking about that you can sell the company and make it the best day of your life, not the worst day. Thank you so much. And guys, this is it for today. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Three amigos signing
See you.